The greatest form of control is where you think you're free when you're being fundamentally manipulated and dictated. One form of dictatorship is being in a prison cell and you can see the bars and touch it. The other one is sitting in a prison cell but you can't see the bar, you think you're free. What the human race is suffering from is mass hypnosis. We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you are tuned to another episode of the Red Pill Hardcore. And I am your host, as always, V. Yes, it's me, V. And, you guys know that I don't pussyfoot around. I get straight into everything with my guest. So, with that said, I have someone I like to call my counterpart in the truth or media targeted individual world. I have with me Miss Ramola D. How you doing, Ramola?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, V, for having me on your show. Very nice to be here and to get to know your show a little bit.
Well, yes. I try to get as many of the targeted individual heroes on my show and let them get known. Let them, I'm not a super celebrity myself. I'm still trying to get known, but we have very important issues that the world needs to come to the realization, that these problems exist and, our situation as it stands in our era that we live in. Things are changing. Technology is advancing and people are getting dumber by the minute. And so I want to go into who you are because you are someone, again, I like to consider my counterpart, and you have your own thing and your own shows. You have the Ramola D Reports and you have the Techno crime fighters, which I asked Karen, can I come on the show? And then I realized, wait a minute, there's only women here. So can you explain all of that?
Well, I don't know how exactly it evolved into a women-only show, but it is. But on the other hand, it's not a women-only show, really. It's a women-only team. But, the Techno Crime Fighters team, when we originally started, it was started at Dr. Paul Marco's channel. And, well, obviously he's not a lady, so he's the one who started the whole team and started the whole show. Eventually, we kind of gravitated to my channel. And Dr. Marco had to take a break for a little while, along with Mindy Erkin, his partner. So, at this point in time, I guess it's just us ladies on the team. But thanks for pointing out that, in a sense, what you and I are doing are somewhat obviously connected. I'm thrilled to know that you've kind of switched to TV. I understand you were on radio previously, and it's fairly recently that you've switched to TV. Right? So which means, you're on video just as I am. And I can tell you that I chose to do this video thing primarily because it's a very immediate medium. People can see you and it's transparent. You're on camera. People can see, every expression on your face. And I'm up for that. I'm up for putting myself in front of a camera and speaking openly and candidly because, as you say, we are dealing with an issue of such gravity that it's absolutely essential, it's absolutely necessary for all of us to literally find our spine and start speaking out about the horrors of the surveillance state and the surveillance abuse that's going on, the absolute surveillance crimes that are going on, and how they're connected to human trafficking and how they're connected to non-consensual neuroexperimentation, cybernetics experimentation, robotics experimentation, you name it. So, that's where I am, and I think you and I have a similarity in terms of bent of mind, in terms of being interested in communications, right, and media, and putting the info out there, and just helping to get other people's voices to the fore, because that's what I'm certainly all about, sort of providing a space for other people to come forward and tell their stories and be heard by the world in the vacuum of mainstream media journalism, mass media, corporate media journalism, I should say. The journalists who are paid the big bucks are not covering this. For whatever reason. I know there's a whole gamut of reasons, right? So we can go into that at some point if you want.
Well, I would like to thank you for pointing out my transition from radio to TV. I've always been told that, wow, you have a voice. You should be a news reporter. You should have, something like that. And I was told, you're just far too good looking for radio. So,
yeah,
so here I am on TV. I have to share my smile with the world. So, but yes, I want to get more into your background. You have, education and obviously tools suited for what you're doing. I would like to get into more of who you are, where you came from.
Well, I guess I have a varied education. My undergraduate degree is in physics, I have an MBA in marketing, and I have an MFA in creative writing with a focus in poetry. I came to the U.S. many years ago to do that MFA in poetry, which when I came was supposed to be just an MFA in creative writing, and I learned you kind of had to specialize. You had to specialize in either fiction or poetry. So I specialized in poetry, but I wrote both, and I continue to write both. Although I have to say over the last couple of years, I've been writing a lot more non-fiction, focusing on these targeting issues, and my fiction has been sort of sitting on a back shelf, and my poetry, but I do need to get back to it. So that's my basic education. Beyond that, actually in between, before I did my MBA, I also trained in journalism. I did a diploma in journalism, and I freelanced for a year in India before I came here. So let's see. So I came here, and after my degree, my MFA, I went into teaching, and I've been literally teaching for 17 years, creative writing, English composition, all kinds of writing, introduction to literature, introduction to fiction writing, intermediate fiction writing, introduction to poetry. I taught both creative writing and, basic composition as well, business communications, things like that. Web writing, web editing, and so on and so forth, at various universities and colleges in the Washington, D.C. area, which is where I was based for a very long time. I've come up to the Boston area about 5 years ago, and at the time that I came up, I was working on a novel, so I continued to work on my novel, and I started to do children's art and creativity and creative writing classes during that time period. And I did that for 2 whole years, I think, before I was targeted. And I continued those workshops for 1 year, although I lost some of my externally paid jobs. I was teaching art at a small Montessori preschool. The lady running the school kind of let me go, saying that she really thought the kids didn't need art classes anymore. This is the most shocking thing. Kids need art classes at that age, or any age. They love it. But this happened as a direct consequence of the targeting. And then I was also teaching at the Milton Arts Center. Milton is this, I live in Quincy, which is in the South Shore Boston area. And Milton is another little town right next door. So I was teaching at the Arts Center and having a whale of a time. I was teaching classes through the course of the year as well as doing summer camps with the kids. My daughter was sort of that age. So the teaching of these art classes began because of my daughter being of that age, 6, 7, 8, and, being interested in these things, and me being interested in these things. And so I kind of went in that direction. But that art center, what happened was they didn't actually let me off or anything. The registration just started to drop, and so ultimately it became kind of pointless to even try to do art classes over there. So that's what I mean. This was a consequence of targeting. Both of these jobs kind of fizzled out thanks to targeting. I continued to run my own private creativity workshops at home for a couple of homeschooled kids. But it seemed like during the course of the targeting, many of the parents were informed because they took their kids out of my classes, which had been really buzzing and alive, and the kids loved them, and they were fabulous while they lasted. So again, consequence of targeting. So
well, if I may interject here with an opinion, it would really be evident of some sort of agenda, some external agenda, because you are really overqualified for those jobs that you had. So I think that someone of your caliber, having the job that you had, your class, I would make sure that my kids were in your classes, being as overqualified as you are.
Oh, thank you, V. Trust me, those classes were great. The parents loved me. The kids loved me. It was all fabulous for a while. And then, like a freight train out of nowhere, I was targeted. And it literally happened through my daughter's school situation. Literally, people at my daughter's school turned away from me overnight. Women, whose kids were my daughter's friends, who had been very good friends with me, literally overnight, started to surveil me, started to point cell phones at me, started to do color coding around me, started to repeat things that I said, and started to engage in all of these usual community policing, surveillance, stalking actions that many of us are reporting, following me. So wherever I go, anywhere, I would run into one of them, and it was kind of set up to be a coincidence. But it wasn't that much of a coincidence, because they wouldn't even approach me unless I approached them, for instance. Weird things, weird things, all sorts of tiny little, weird things happening. But literally, I would catch them when we went into parent-teacher occasions at the school. I once got one of the women standing behind me with her cell phone. What was she doing? Was she triangulating? Was she GPSing, GPS tracking? Literally behind me. And I turned around and said, "Oh my goodness, I didn't see you." And she said, "Oh," and put her cell phone away and said, "Oh, yeah, no, I'm fine." She had tried to pick up a conversation. So this kind of thing went on to such an extent it was so obvious. So, but I'm just kind of talking about, one of the aspects. I'm sure you've experienced, or you've heard about this kind of thing from other people who are targeted.
Yeah, well, with the people that were doing it to me, I guess the transition to TV kind of helped with that, because I just started posing for the camera, smiling. It made it very easy because it's usually all females. So don't tell my significant other I said this. And so I just sort of immersed myself in the Truman Show. So that's how I dealt with it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess we all have different ways of dealing with it. I think for a while, initially, I was recording everything, and then I was, filming some of this. I had my camera. My cell phones were always messed with. Even after I got a digital camera, that's been messed with. But I've kind of alternated between filming, recording, documenting, and then just sort of keeping it in my head for, use later in fiction, because as a fiction writer, I see the great potential here. And I just haven't sat down and written a novel, but that's definitely on my mind. That's definitely something I want to do.
Well, I can definitely, relate to the whole electronic harassment. And this is what I really call the electronic harassment, is the hacking of device after device after device. I've had to become somewhat of a IT person. I went from being I wouldn't say completely computer literate, because I'm a gamer, so I mean I know my way around computers enough, but I've had to go to being full-blown IT guy just to keep my things running, to keep things running in the studio. I know TLBTV has given me endless opportunities and endless extensions and endless, just be sure to get this episode in on time next week. I hear that every week for like half a year. But my show is good enough to where they want to keep me, thank God. So, but yeah.
That's terrific.
Every week is a different issue of how I've been hacked. And yeah, so I can definitely understand. I can relate.
Thank you. Yes, and talking about hacking and shows being hacked, my goodness, that happens pretty much on every single show of mine, Something or the other occurs. And most definitely that is a sign of the ways in which those of us who are creating a space for the truth to get out are being interfered with. Because as we know, there are forces out there that are striving to stifle free speech and striving to stifle the truth of what's going on from reaching other people, because all those other people are being suppressed, and they're being suppressed with lies. And you see, in fact, that's something I would indeed like to talk about, at some point. This whole scenario in which our communities have become literally Nazified and Stasified, where we have the fusion center people marching into communities, scapegoating targets, telling stories and lies about targets, and then taking over those people. And I would imagine, for instance, in my community, in my little neighborhood of here, where I am most definitely the scapegoat, the target, people running out of their houses to surveil, stalk, arrival, departure, stalk, all this nonsense. And also seeing how they've been letting people from outside come in and park in their driveways and send electromagnetic signals into my room, so that I can record them on my meter as impinging on my body. I would venture that these people, my neighbors, are perfectly aware that weapons are being used on me, that electromagnetic weapons are being used on me. What do you think?
I've had people use some of these meters and, it goes off the scale at one time and it does something another time. These meters themselves can be isolated and targeted to put out whatever readings that these people want on there. I've had, for example, when I got V2K heavily, I used to try to listen to my music from my MP3 player, just as loud as I can, just to try to get through a moment without having to hear them. And next thing I know, zits, my MP3 player is fried. I used to go through.
Me too. Yes.
I used to go through 3 or 4 MP3 players a month. So that just should tell you. I don't know. What do you think?
I've definitely had MP3 players fried. I've had electrical appliances in the house fried. Blenders, toasters, heaters. And I've heard the zap. I've heard the little EMP shot as they go off and don't come back. Meters. My meters have not been fried. My meters have not experienced that. I'll tell you, that's happened to a cell phone of mine. That's been attacked, yes, and a digital camera has been attacked. But a couple of the meters that I have, they've been able to drain batteries, but not the meter itself. The meter hasn't stopped working. So,
yeah, I have lots of laptops that are no longer really laptops, but stationary computers, because it doesn't matter what batteries I put inside them, they get drained instantly.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. They attack laptops. I'm, total victim of laptop attacks. And just recently I almost lost everything. And, I luckily did ultimately regain my files thanks to getting some ultra tech support that managed to retrieve my files for me from my hard drive from the previous laptop, which had been encrypted to prevent my getting back in them. And they just happened to be the file folders that I used for my site, used for my podcast. They had all my MP4s. They had all my articles that I'm writing in draft that are sitting there. So, I'm very grateful I got them back, but immediately after I got it back, obviously, I kind of freaked out. I signed up with a cloud service, so now I'm getting backup on a regular basis of all my stuff. So that can't happen to me again. I can't lose stuff.
Typically, I have 4 or 5 backups for anything that I have, for anything that supports.
That is very smart. I need to get there. I need to start practicing.
I have an online backup to a cloud, and then usually 3 or 4 external hard drives. The most important ones wrapped up in little Faraday boxes and stowed away.
That is pretty brilliant. That's what I need to do, absolutely, yeah. Flash drives do help, right?
Absolutely. Flash drives are the hardest for them to alter without it being connected to any computer.
Yeah, we have to take these precautions because I think those of us who are doing any kind of radio, video, media show in particular seem to be coming under some kind of major focused attack.
Well, and see, that's just another thing. I'm trying to get target individuals to understand that they need to back up their information. They need to have multiple devices, and they need to get physical evidence. A camera phone, a cheap camera phone, which they never connect to any service and never connect to any internet, and record. Just use it as a recording device and record all the electronic harassment you go through. Whether it's being cyber-stalked or just your computer's going berserk. Firewall on top of firewall. You can do it. I've configured a 3-way firewall that basically keeps me with 2 operational computers right now. So, unfortunately, in this technical age, you got to learn how to do these things. And, just your run-of-the-mill stuff that you download, it's got the back doors, but if you make them navigate a 3-way back door, it's going to be something obvious, and when they screw with something, you've got your evidence. No ordinary hacker is going to be able to really do anything. It's going to be government interference all the way. You take that to the court, you take that to the bank.
That's very good advice. Yeah, absolutely. I think as far as evidence goes, and if you're preparing for a court case, absolutely. And I also think, just using a camera to record outside the actual physical stalking, the non-stop psyops around you, the COINTELPRO, the cars with the 1 lights and the brighting, and the pounding of cars. I can't even go for a walk in my neighborhood without cars suddenly pounding past me, like zooming at high speed in a 20-mile-per-hour neighborhood. Just zooming past me. So I've started to record
the lights that brighten. They immediately turn on the brights if you're outside at past dark. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think that's classic COINTELPRO. I seem to recall reading that that's something the FBI actually equips cars for, or has equipped cars for. Literally, it's like a little knob. People inside can start turning up the knob to make one headlight go brighter. So, or both go super bright as you drive along. So the car that's coming across from you is going to suddenly bright you. And it's...
Well, actually, more covert than that. They will actually... They have scalar technology based on Tesla technology. The way I figured it, see, most of these people that drove by me, and I sat in my van one day outside of a friend's house, and I noticed that these cars driving by all turned on their brights. But it wasn't necessarily that they turned on their brights, because from what I know, experience in my own apartment when I lived alone, certain lights would get bright at certain times where I didn't want them. Like I'm trying to take a nap, I happen to leave a light on, one would get super bright,
Oh yeah, they do
and
it
wake me up.
at my home too. Yes, yeah.
And then, vice versa, when I really need some light and I've got some lights on, that's why I have studio lights for when I do my TV show, because, the regular lights where I am just start not doing it. But they have the ability to make car lights brighter than they really are, even without the driver knowing.
Oh, I see. Interesting.
Through scalar wave power input. So this is another example of how they use people to do street theater or to do COINTELPRO, and these people are not involved.
That's an interesting theory, certainly.
I've had lots of time to research.
That theory before. Many people, propound various versions of that theory. I personally let all theories sit side by side in front of me. I don't necessarily give way to any one over the other, but no doubt there are different kinds of technology being used, and I can tell you that I have certainly experienced sitting in my dining room and having the chandelier brighten up and brighten down, or flash or flicker, and it appears as if the electricity is being affected. The electricity going into that particular outlet is being affected. So that's evidence to me of some kind of remote electrical weapon. So beyond that, I don't really know what it might be. I know there are many patents out there,
Well, there is lots of literature on the programming of someone's mind based on fluorescent lighting. Flashing.
Oh, that's right.
Flashing
yeah.
that you can't even see. It happens so fast at rapid speed, cycling.
Right.
So there's so much literature on it. I don't even have to.
I have read that. Yes. Yeah. Fluorescent lights in particular, and I think Barry Trower has talked about those.
Yes, Dr. Barry Trower. Indeed, he has talked about that. So basically, I have found in my investigations personally that a lot of times where we think that someone has something to do with something, they actually don't. And I've done everything I could to call myself paranoid. I played devil's advocate and have done everything possible. And I found these little things that involve lots of people in which these people have no involvement in whatsoever, and just based on the literature, the research, the science. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, beyond that, we also must remember that we are living in a surveillance state. There are such things as infraguard. Infraguard, you've heard of infraguard, right? The FBI has,
I did an entire episode on gang stalking. Yes.
Yeah. So people are being trained in stalking. And there's also things like Citizen Watch, Neighborhood Watch, Big Brother Watch, or whatever they call it, I've got to look for the real names when I actually look it up. But these programs, these so-called Neighborhood Watch and Citizen Watch programs, are breeding this kind of Nazi behavior of sicking one neighbor onto another. And that's the kind of divisiveness that's going on in our communities across America currently. We are being torn apart by these targeting programs and these Uber surveillance programs, which are built on lies. Because literally, those who are targeted are being painted in their neighborhoods as being dangerous, as being unstable, as being mentally ill, or being extremist, terrorists, all this nonsense language that comes straight out of these FBI brochures and the DHS, the Homeland Security website. It's a joke to imagine that this is going on in America and that there are neighbors actually falling for this. But, as we've talked about several times on the Technocrime shows, Technocrime Fighter Forum shows, if you've watched them.
I have.
Okay, so this is one of our favorite subjects, to actually look around at what's going on in our communities and say to ourselves, why are our friends and neighbors falling for this? Why are they falling over? But this is the power of the badge, as we've talked about. Somebody walks in and says, I'm FBI. I'm whatever, I'm DHS, and we're investigating your neighbor. Oh, did you say she taught third grade? Oh, well, no, she's actually a terrorist. And, we have some information. We're investigating her very closely, but we need your help. We need your help in community policing. We need to deter her. We need to be a strong deterrent force in the neighborhood, etc. So, these are lies and stories, but because of that badge, there is fear and terror being created in neighborhoods. And that, to me, is the most grotesque thing that's going on in America today. Because this is literally like Nazi times.
Well, I'm trying to counter that. I have my involvement in civilian militia, and I have my influence therein, even with the Black Panther Party. And so, with these things said, we know that there's the COINTELPRO. Anthony Thomas is writing a book on a counter COINTELPRO, and these things, again, it's just like you said, it's the whole, I would say, bedazzlement of being deputized and becoming a cop, a COP, a citizen on patrol, and yeah, these people are vigilant, and they don't know why they're vigilant. They don't know anything about anything, but they're being used. And it's free labor. That just
right. Exactly.
That's the disgusting thing about it, is that the government is getting free labor.
Mm-hmm.
For an agent doesn't have to get his hands dirty if your neighbor's willing to.
Mm-hmm. And they're recruiting kids now. They're recruiting teenagers and kids as well. And there's been some kind of, expose in the UK. Jeff Godwin had sent me over a couple of articles in The Guardian about something called the PREVENT program. So what they've got going, as a mass stalking neighborhood watch program is something called the PREVENT program. So they're trying to prevent kids from being radicalized or whatever. So there's all sorts of rationalizations behind this that ultimately all end in the same place, making snitches and spies out of your own neighbors.
And that's just to further destabilize our society. I mean, the home unit, okay, the family unit is the backbone of America. They have so many ways to destabilize the home. One, by making the economy such where both parents need to work. Divorces happen more often than not. There's a 50% divorce rate after, a year? and when you got CPS, these people scoop in and start snatching up children for
oh my gosh,
sex slave, yeah. But now next after that, who's left? Well, we gotta get your neighbors. They want everything in the world to put you on lockdown, strip you of everything you have and put you on lockdown.
Mm-hmm. It's so insidious because basically what they are doing to people who are being targeted is they're creating a scenario to isolate the target, the person who's being targeted. So this person who may have been an outstanding person in their community, a strong voice in their community, an outspoken advocate for human rights or social justice or the environment, is suddenly becoming the focus of extremely hostile behavior directed at him or her. And then, of course, there's, this travels even further. Families are being torn apart because families are also being either physically contacted or, and this is the other aspect, right, that we haven't touched on, are being neurotagged. So to turn away. So, and this enters the whole realm of mind control, and what you and I and those of us who are targeted have stumbled into is the whole magic world of mind control technology, which to the rest of the populace is still being MSM mediated to them as science fiction and belonging in the way future. But we know that this is actually stuff from the past of the black ops world. The stuff has been going on for like 50 to 60 to 70 years. They're very sophisticated at this point in time.
Absolutely, you're right on with that one.
But,
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so ultimately we are at this point in time where, there's all sorts of incredible mind control technology that's being used on all of us, on all Americans, and all humans across the globe, but specifically in some very devious neuro-experimental ways via these behavior modification, remote neuromodification and behavior modification programs, cybernetics programs, artificial intelligence programs, neurotech experimentation programs, weapons testing programs are being especially, honed in on TIs. These people, those people who have been chosen to be experimented on by the uber surveillance state that wants to, clamp down on the strong voices. This group of people has now, at this point in time, we've gotten access to such incredible knowledge about the plethora of mind control tech and neurotech that's out there, that's been developed for several decades, that's in use now by the agencies, that's in use by the Department of Justice, that's in use by DOD, that's certainly being tested and experimented with to some extent by these black ops agencies, but a lot of which is indeed operational, not merely being experimented with. It's actually operational.
I think it's pretty textbook so far. I mean, these people have their PSYOP manuals. I don't know, have you ever read the NSA PSYOP manual, mind control PSYOP manual by Will Filler?
By who?
Will Filler. He was an agent.
Okay, no, I have not read this one. The NSA PSYOP manual.
The NSA mind control PSYOP manual.
The NSA mind control PSYOP. I have to read that, and in fact, we have to put the link out for everybody to read it.
I'm going to put in the link in the show right now. Yeah.
Thank you.
This is something that we have to.
I've read a lot of the trickery and deception manuals from the CIA and what else? The joint doctrine of deception or something or the other. Again, I don't have the specific names in mind, but you get the idea. It's all about deception and trickery.
Well, I encourage everyone to read this manual. When I first looked it up back in 2014, there were maybe 10 pages with this manual on it. Now there's 2 that I can find. So please read it while you can before it completely disappears from the internet. I know I'll always keep a copy of it myself, several copies of it myself, in case it becomes obscure. But with that said, we got to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Hello, I'm B from the Red Pill Hardcore TV show, and I'm here to deliver a message to you. I am standing up, and I think you guys should stand up too. What are we standing up for? Clean air. The New World governments have been spraying aluminum, strontium, barium, all kinds of nanoparticulates, salts, heavy metals, and we are losing our environment. We have trees with aluminum toxicity. Our wildlife is disappearing, one species at a time. We have weather warfare weaponry. If there is anything such as global warming, well, we have ionospheric heaters that's dramatically bombarding our atmosphere. All this damage can be done to the environment by these nanoparticulates being sprayed into the atmosphere. We know that it's causing respiratory issues. We know that it's causing autism. We know that it's causing Morgellons, the transhumanistic disease. What else is it doing? I think it may just be altering our minds. Watch my movie, and then you decide.
there isn't much difference between emergency food companies? We bought competing products from recognized brands so we could show you a very simple comparison to Legacy Premium. It's easy to see. Legacy not only gives you more food for your money, but Legacy is non-GMO and tastes great.
I want people to buy this. People, buy Lou Garino's book.
Yeah, guys, it's on Amazon. You can check it out by the author, Lou Garino, Garino. You can go to my Facebook page, Business Newsmakers. You can order it on there. You can go to Amazon. The book is called Fear and Loathing, Voting in America 2016. But it's more than just a voting book and about apathy. It's about how we got to this point in history. So it could be relevant in 2020 as well. How did we get here right now? What were the set of circumstances politically and socially that melted to this point where our country is the way it is right now, where they have divided us? And when I say they, we're not divided amongst ourselves. We're united, man. I live in one of the most culturally diverse cities in America, in the world, Houston, Texas. People open the door for each other. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Howdy. There's no hate. It's all what they're selling on TV through their psychological operations. So it's all about that. It's all about how the Clintons came to power, the Bushes, you name it, guys. Fear and Loathing, Voting in America 2016. It's a must read. It gives you a different look as opposed to the partisan views. It gives you an anti-partisan view about how this country started without any parties whatsoever, and about how they collaborated to take control of our country. So you get a chance, give it a read. It's not too long. It's not War and Peace. I make the points rather quickly. Fear and Loathing, Voting in America 2016. And I also want to encourage you to stay tuned to his new television show that is enlightening the world. It's illuminating the people that are illuminating us. So we've got to stay true. We've got to seek the truth, and we've got to keep endlessly seeking the truth. So stay tuned, guys, and keep watching.
And yes, we're back. I still have Ramola D from Ramola D Reports, and we're just hashing out the issues here. So from one target individual media host to another, well, actually, let me take a step back and ask you, how is it being able to work with my big sis on your show all the time? Karen Stewart, you know what I'm talking
Karen
about.
Stewart,
That's my big sis.
Well, yes, no, Karen's wonderful, and I really admire Karen because she's not ever wavered from her mission to inform the world about what's going on. From her obviously superior vantage point of having been an NSA employee and an NSA intelligence analyst with top secret clearance, but somebody who obviously is not breaching that clearance when she's revealing that she has personally experienced being literally physically stalked and being hit with electromagnetic weapons from NSA security and U.S. naval security. These are the people who've been following her and, hitting her with weapons, and also FBI, I think, in Florida. So she's, she's extraordinary because there are very few whistleblowers from inside the government who will speak openly about directed energy weapon use on Americans. And the reason for that, I think, is possibly obvious, that anybody who mentions it gets targeted themselves, gets hit themselves. That apparently is the way that the system or this program has been set up. You speak about it, you're going to be hit hard. If you're already targeted, and we know that, we know how that goes down, right? But that doesn't stop us from speaking out. We're already targeted, we're being hit harder when we speak out, when we bring, guests with power and voice into the media space. But that hasn't stopped me, and I doubt it's stopping you. Good. I'm glad to find a kindred spirit here. Because, we need people like you and me out there to stand up and say, okay, I won't say what I was really going to say, to say that we really have to do this. We have to speak out, because if we don't do it, who on earth is going to do it? My daughter is being targeted, and even though she will deny it, okay, because I see the signs of her being hit. I have spoken to many people who are being targeted, whose children are being hit. Many, women and men. That is horrifying, because that tells you this is what they've got down the pike. This is their intention for the next generation. So if we don't stop it right now, it's going to be a nightmare for our children.
Well, there's a friend of mine. I'm glad you brought this up. There's a friend of mine who is very active within the target individual community, and trying her best to get things exposed. She mentioned that her children start hearing the voices, and these voices are simultaneously telling these children to favor daddy over mommy. And that's sick.
That is sick, and that's happening. I've heard of people being, that's again a form of mind control, that we were just talking about mind control technology. So this is actually persuasive, open, flagrant programming, that's being fed in by V2K, whatever tech is being used to V2K into people's brains, whether it's amplitude modulated microwaves, doing synthetic telepathy, or a cochlear implant, or radio hypnosis, subliminal messaging, or straight out V2K, amplitude modulated. This is flagrant programming. This is flagrant. This is like, Big Brother speaking in your ear and saying, do this, don't do that, This is, we're seeing Big Brother in action over here.
Oh, yeah. I've actually brought this issue up, and this is one of my platforms, one of my firm platforms, is how these children have found themselves in mommy and daddy's bedroom, and have somehow gone through a closet and found mommy and daddy's gun and have blown their heads off. This whole issue of gun control.
Oh. Yes.
And how many kids that they whisper in their ear with this technology? Instructions.
That is an excellent point. I'm so glad you brought that up, because that occurs to me too. Literally, the power of this technology is mind-boggling, because what it means is the person who wields this technology has power over humanity and society, and can literally move people around like pawns on a chessboard, and make kids do exactly what you suggest. Take a gun to their heads. And so you have this horrific story in the newspapers about how this kid somehow got into mommy or daddy's closet, as you said, and, fiddled with the gun and the mechanism and the locks or whatever, however guns work, and managed to, unlatch them and make them go off. So that's the level of children, but that's also happening, I think, at the level of adults. And that brings us, to the whole Patsy's Manchurian Candidate, MKUltra scenario, right?
Right.
So obviously that can happen too, and I think that is indeed what is happening, and it's been happening for decades in this country.
Well, I'm actually going to say this now, but again, the adult, to me, if you're an adult and you're going through this and you either know or don't know, that's sort of up to you. if you make it through, hats off to you. If you don't, I think you should have had a little bit more intelligence, a little bit more maturity. But I'm trying to protect the children. And I happen to know that that's how they're keeping these children that are being, moved around within these sex rings, Pizzagate and whatever other.
Yes, I think you're right, because Millicent has certainly spoken about that. Radio hypnosis.
Well, the mosquito. Have you ever heard of the mosquito device?
I think I have a vague recollection. Do refresh my memory. What is that
The mosquito
about?
device was a device made for anti-loitering. Anti-loitering. A certain age group hanging around this device could hear sound that no one else can hear.
Oh my gosh.
This
Okay, I have not heard of this one.
This was made public. Actually installed into malls and different streets. People didn't want these kids around certain areas, which actually sort of lets you know that they're navigating these children to certain areas to be put into certain possibly dangerous areas to, who knows, be kidnapped by some CIA operatives to be made into sex slaves and so forth. And so, I mean, the mosquito.
That is seriously unsettling.
The mosquito, it's actually named MK3 or something like that.
The MK3 mosquito, yeah, of course.
Mind control.
3. Yeah.
Yeah. So this right there in front of your faces, ladies and gentlemen. I'll put the link into the show. You can. I've already covered this, and I will beat this issue over the head. I'll beat it like a dead horse, so you people understand. This is how our children are being controlled. This is how a lot of them are being molested, and this is how a lot of them will never speak out for fear of hearing that non-stop noise in their head that you can't hear.
This reminds me of the case of that young child, an Indian girl, a 3-year-old Indian family in Texas. The father put her out of the house, 3-year-old child, in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. because she asked for a glass of milk. He put her out of the house. And after an hour, he told her she was going to stay there for an hour. Well, he couldn't find her after an hour. And I guess a few days later, she turned up dead, And I think, of course, the guy was indicted, the father and all that. But and this created a huge ruckus in India. This happened in Texas. And people in India obviously were very concerned. And a minister over there was trying to start up an investigation and an inquiry into this. But it really makes one think, was this man mind-controlled to do this to his child?
Well,
so
that we can only question the man that did that. That's horrendous. But that to me sounds more of programming from, I would say, from an era of punishment that no longer.
It could be that as well. A bit of patriarchal, lunacy as well, no doubt. I mean, that's the initial response that most of us come to, especially when you don't know about mind control tech being used on people. But we're living in a time period when mind control tech is indeed being used on people. So those of us who are aware of it, I think we do have to look at it with those two lenses in mind. Is this lunatic, patriarchal authoritarianism in action, or is it, somebody being mind-teched, radio hypnotized to do this to his own child, or is it a combination of both? Who knows? I don't know.
I get both are forms of mind control. Not all mind control has to be, technological. There's the social construct. I mean, I know, coming from a African-American family, Native American family, I went through punishments as a child that Caucasian children wouldn't have gone through. We didn't believe in the sit in the corner.
True. It's a difference in culture too, as well, that one takes into account. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't think it's cultural in India at all to throw your child out at 3 o'clock in the morning.
No.
When she asks for a glass of milk, I'm sorry.
That's true. That's true.
So, but that does denote a level of authoritarianism and imperialism and dominance. Kind of a domineering kind of character or personality or attitude in the house that most certainly does derive a little bit from patriarchy, the cultural patriarchy that can relate to culture. Yeah.
Okay. And I wanted to point out a piece that you did that resonated with me. You did an episode on... Basically, the robots are taking over. You did an episode on drones and how they're used for not only surveillance but for future militaristic policing of us, and how they just might come down on us one day. Something that I try to get people to understand is that these drones have capabilities of surveillancing inside your homes. They can watch you in your homes. There's millimeter wave technology.
And they're nano. Talking about mosquitoes, they have little nanobot drones now. They have those little mosquito drones.
They have mosquito drones. Yes, that's true. But as far as we can swap those and that'd be that. But as far as these drones that are hanging over every city, every new world order nation, initialized nation, we have these drones over every city, and they're looking at people through their walls. Some use technology that relies on your Wi-Fi. If you're a Wi-Fi user, you're tracked throughout your home, your apartment, your house, doesn't matter. They can see you using your Wi-Fi. Your Wi-Fi is weaponized. And they can see through the walls with the millimeter wave technology. They have the range R technology. Have you heard of that?
Range R, no, but I was going to say that sort of connects also to the Internet of Things, the sensors everywhere that they're already rolling out, I think.
Yeah, the sensors of things. On my laptops, for example, whenever I get up and I leave them unattended for a while, I can come back. I can run to my laptop, open up the task manager, and I have 4 or 5, maybe even sometimes 6 console host processes where someone's hacking into it.
Oh, yeah.
Even with my Wi-Fi turned off.
That's a permanent issue in my laptop because I don't know what to do about it.
The laptops can sense whether you're sitting in front of them or not. And if you're not sitting in front of it, they will start hacking. They'll start adding in monitoring programs. They'll start doing all sorts of things and modifying your computer.
That's very interesting. I sort of thought that was related to Wi-Fi, and I got used to switching off Wi-Fi every time I got up from the laptop. But
they don't need Wi-Fi.
If it's worse than that, then there's no hope.
Yeah, they don't need Wi-Fi anymore. There are sensors, radio sensors, that pick up different levels of spectrum. It doesn't have to be this 5G, 4G, 3G, 2.4G. It doesn't have to be any of that. Radio has radio sensors, infrared sensors. They know whether or not you're sitting in front of your computer.
And if you've seen those videos recently that I've been tweeting them out as well from American, intelligence media, and from Lionel Nation, interviews with Thomas Paine, who's talking about this primary focal node, a kind of a chip that's placed everywhere. That's part of the Internet of Things. And he's talking about the patents and the whole story of patent espionage behind it and patent theft behind it. But he's also talking about this actual microchip that now that comes with your computer. It's an ME or something. It comes. there are several. It's a single kind of chip, but there are different patterns associated with it and different modalities of that chip, I think, which are used in different areas. For instance, in computers or in infrastructure or in human bodies. And in human bodies are just seen as wetware. Chip.
Wetware.
So,
yes. Yes. I'm familiar with that term, wetware. Yes.
So, I mean, that's all part of this whole scenario where apparently we're just wetware. We're just being seen as what? Carbon and water and, surrounding the silicon wafer. So it's a way in the human body to literally not just track, but also remotely control. And so that's what these video conversations that, are all about, I guess other people who are not targeted, therefore, are waking up to this understanding that through these kinds of means, the so-called controllers out there, the technocrats, the lunatic technocrats who are throwing this kind of tech out into the universe, this is their intentionality for all of us, eventually, to completely take over and have us all be shockable from a distance. Because that's part of it, electrical shocks from a distance. Aggressive remote control of the wetware.
Where do you see the end of this? Where is this going to all end?
Well, I think the answer is something that you are already participating and taking part in, and I think I am too, and I think all of us who are trying to do our best are. The answer is simply to get super public about everything. Keep reading, keep learning, keep investigating, keep researching, and keep putting it out there. Keep informing people, because there are people who are still lost in the educational system, lost in the 9 to 5, 5-day work week scenario, who have not woken up to what's going on. People do not know what's going on. And mainstream media is doing nothing for us. Mass media is doing nothing for us. There are journalists of integrity out there. They are speaking out. So it behooves all of us who are speaking out to keep doing what we're doing. Because the way I look into the future is, I don't know what the future that they have planned is pretty dark. But I refuse to predictively enter that space of future that they are programming for you and me. I refuse to. I refuse to give it any time of day. I'm going to look at what they're doing. I'm going to show people the mirror of what they're doing, and I'm going to speak about it. But I'm hoping that in the process, as informed, educated humanity, we are going to stop it collectively. It is a collective movement. We're working individually in our own space, but we're working together. And so I'm very optimistic. I do everything I do with absolute certainty, confidence, optimism, hope that things are going to change. Or I wouldn't be bothering.
Well, that's a good attitude to have. I happen to know, since they got me involved, they ain't got a chance.
I think so. See, that's the thing. They hit the wrong people, I don't know what they were thinking.
They weren't. They must have been controlled by their own AIs. But with that said, I thank you for coming on to the show. And, hey, let's do it again.
Thank you, V. Thanks very much for having me on. And, as I said before, we have to have you on my show so I can interview you.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
So thank you all for tuning in to the Red Pill Hardcore TV show. I'm your host, V. And, hey, visit me next week. Hey, guys. Still V here. I wanted to take a time out and apologize to you, the viewers. I've had some leaks, some compromises as far as integrity of the show, and those breaks have been removed from public view. And what I speak of is the fake TIs out there. There are fake TIs, and there are, well, you've got it two ways. You have the TIs out there that go perpetrator because they are offered release or they've made some sort of deal and go perp. Then you have some perps out there who fake being TIs. Now, I speak to you about, Kanjamila. There's Teresa, who is loved by the TI community as a complete fake. I'll let some other people explain that to you on some other shows. We have these pretend-a-willies, like Suja Vajian, Suja the JJ, whatever her name is, who start these TI chat groups who only want to archive and see what TIs know. Completely fake. It's like this Dwight character and this stupid Crocodile Dundee hat. These are all fake TIs who are online, social media, like Facebook, Twitter, whatever. They're all over the place. I don't care if they're slandering me or Anthony or anyone who is involved with the show, because the proof is in the pudding, the work that we do. For anyone to fall for anything that these individuals say, after all the work we've done, well, you're probably a TI for a reason, and you're gullible, and this mind control thing, you're meant to be mind control, maybe? Who knows? But, with that said, these individuals have been removed from my media where I have access to it. There's others that others have access to that need to be removed. Because I don't want shills, fakes, or perps on my show. I want to keep that integrity. So thank you for your valuable time to listen to this message.